Okay, welcome everybody. We'll go ahead and begin this public hearing. And I'll start by reading the notice. Notice is hereby given that the following hearing will be held in the Bonneville County Courthouse, 605 North Capitol Avenue in Idaho Falls, Idaho, on May 8th this year at 1:30 p.m. by the Bonneville County Commissioners for the purpose of a public hearing in relation to the application by AHG Capital LLC for a rezone from RP Residential Park Zone and A1 Agricultural Zone to an R 1.5 Residence Zone. The general location is the north side of 49th North, east of Will Foss Drive, and south of Prairie Highway in Bonneville County. The notice then gives the legal description as well as the instructions for how to attend the meeting. And it is signed by our planning and zoning administrator, Austin Black, and was published on April 23rd of 2024. We have all three commissioners assembled for this meeting. We also have our planning and zoning administrator, Austin Black, as well as administrative staff from his office and administrative staff from the commissioner's office. We have received all of the minutes from two hearings, it looks like, that was held at the planning and zoning level on this topic, and those were held on the 23rd of March 27th and February 28th, if I'm correct. We have all of that information from both of those meetings. It was given to the commissioners quite some time ago, and we have reviewed them without objection. We will make those part of the record today, and we will use all that information. We are seeking today additional and new information. If you have to add to that, or information you feel like we need to support whatever position you had on it during those two hearings, if you testified at that time. We, again, have read all of that twice where there were two hearings. And so we encourage new information or additional because we are aware of what was said in those meetings. We do look forward to hearing the issue today and making a decision on it at a future date after we review all the information that's supplied today. So we'll go ahead and start with Michelle Hagan, if I'm correct.
Yes.
Who will present the application to us.
Right, Michelle Hagan with Bonneville County Planning and Zoning. So this is an application by Steve Ellsworth of Ellsworth and Associates on behalf of the AHG Capital LLC for a zoning map amendment from the RP and A1 to an R 1.5 zone. This application was reviewed by the Planning and Zoning Commission on the February 28th and then on March 27th. As you noted, for the record, minutes were included in the packet. So the property is located on the north side of 49th North, south of Highway 26, and east of the area known as Beaches Corner. The request is for a 9.013 acre property, which is the majority of an existing platted lot within the Sorensen Acres subdivision. There was a land swap with the neighboring property owner, and we have the deeds that were recorded verifying the ownership of the properties. The land use designation is mixed use, which you can see in this next slide. There we go, the pink. The adjacent land uses are mixed use, and then urban residential is on the south side of 49th North. The proposed R 1.5 zone is one of the zones that may be considered within the mixed use designation. However, that does not mean it should automatically be approved. The adjacent zoning districts, go to the next slide, please. Thank you. Our RP for the residential park, C2, A1, and R1. There are multiple subdivisions in the area which are commercial or residential uses. And the P and Z has reviewed the Norton preliminary plat at their February plat meeting regarding the property directly south to be developed with an elementary school. The application states that the development would be serviced by Iona Bonneville Sewer District and Falls Water. The proposed R 1.5 zoning district allows for single-family dwellings and 0 lot line twin homes. And then the history of the property was provided in the staff report, so I was gonna skip going into in-depth with that. The subject property is now located in the new area of impact with the city of Iona specifically located in that new high-density housing corridor overlay, and the R 1.5 zone is one that may be considered in this area. The city of Iona will require annexation when it becomes adjacent to the development. The comprehensive plan has compatibility decisions that should be considered in all map amendments. These include looking at compatibility to adjacent uses. It needs to be determined if the proposed change would create negative impact on the existing established uses, congest thoroughfares, or overload public facilities. We need to look at the effect with different zones in this area, especially along the north side of 49th North and what is developing along the south side of 49th North, as well as consider the area of impact agreement. Public Works Director had not provided new comments regarding the proposed project, but initially comments indicated that arterial road improvements would be required. The Health Department had no comments. The Planning and Zoning Commission had significant discussion during both public hearings. During the March hearing, they recommended denial by a 5-1 vote. The discussion prior to the motion included concern regarding the request. Almost seemed a little early due to the road infrastructure in the area, traffic concerns, and not necessarily consistent with what is on the adjacent sides of the subject property, or things that were noted and discussed. So, and I have nothing further.
Questions? I've got a few, I think I'll hold. Okay. Commissioner Walker, question at this point? Okay. All right, thank you. We'll next go ahead and invite the developer or their representative. Come up, please state your name and address for the record.
Steve Ellsworth, Ellsworth and Associates, 253 First Street. Just a few things I wanted to talk about. In the planning and zoning meeting, one of the things that was brought up is that you don't find anywhere, excuse me, in the county that has a residential zone next to an agricultural piece. We actually pointed out a piece of property, and they thought it was the well lot. It's actually not. It's the parcel that's directly west of where the school's gonna go, right there. So there are examples of area where there is agriculture, an agricultural zone completely surrounded by a residential zone, that being one of the cases right there. So I guess this is an RP. One of the other things that we wanted to bring up about is the reason that we are requesting a rezone is currently we are in Sorensen Acres, and that was a 2-lot plat. Lot 1 was a 3-lot plat. Without a rezone, the smallest we can go down to is a 3-acre lot. With the arterial road improvements, it just is cost and prohibitive in order to build that much road frontage on 49 for 3 lots. I'm sure you've already heard that this is in the area of impact. Agreement that was approved last August by our Planning and Zoning Commission. I feel that should have some weight. This is half of the reason why we're in front of you today is we seen that it was in the area of impact, thought that we had a chance for the rezone. Beyond that, I think that's about all that I can bring up that's new. Everything else I'm sure is pretty much in depth been talked about in the planning and zoning minutes. Are there any questions that I could possibly answer for the commission?
Right now. There may be this time after your public testimony.
So.
Okay, so with that said, we'll go ahead and open it up to public testimony and invite anyone who would wish to testify either for or against to come on up. Give us your name and address.
So Barry Bain with Connect Engineering, 2295 North Yellowstone, also talking for the developer on this property. A couple things that I would just like to point out real quickly. One of the emphasis that I'm sure you read in the staff report and know of, but I think are pretty important is one, we know that this area, can you go to the comp plan map? If you have that, you know, we know this area is mixed use in the comp plan, which, you know, in the mixed use zone, it talks about all the different types of zones that can be in that mixed use zone, which is almost every single one, R1, R1.5, R2, R3, PB, all the way up to M1 and M1A and C2 sometimes. Along with that, if you can go to the zone map now, the way that we've planned for this is to traditionally follow that down zone and that step zoning down away from your major corridors, the US 26 right there, and you have commercial next to that. And then you have your higher density, medium density, lower density, and that's what, that's the transition that we're going for on this as well, seeking the zone that we're seeking. It makes a lot more sense to have your R1.5s or your R2s or your R3s right next to your commercial rather than your just typical R1s right there. So with that and the recent high density corridor with the city of Iona as well, we feel that the rezone that we're seeking falls right in line with the comprehensive plan, the land use map, the whole area right there really is a good mix of property there. It's not all just A1, and we feel that it's, you know, with the mixed use, that's truly what you want is mixed zones. So that's why we're seeking. We don't feel that it's out of character in the future. You know, who knows when that will be, 5, 10, 15, 20, 30 years. You know, land will continue to be developed, and that A1 will most likely be rezoned in the future. I know there's traffic concerns. There's always going to be traffic concerns, but 49th is planned to be a 5-lane road. Like it's planned to be able to support well more than what we're going to be adding. I know there was talk of, well, let's wait until the road improvements get done and can support it. And typically your development brings the infrastructure up, you know, as Lance stated, you know, the developer would be responsible for building their portion of the road rather than waiting for the county to build that road and then comes on. Same with that R3 piece right there at Beach's Corner, you know, they're gonna build their portion of the road. So really when development comes, that helps bring the improvements for the roadway to be able to support that as well. I think that's all that I had to add. I stand for any questions if there are any.
Questions?
Thank you.
Right, thank you.
Chantel Dunkley, 5543 North, 45th East. We were the adjacent farm there. My problem is when I look at this big sand, or I don't even know if it's big sand, there's a creek that runs next to the, you see that? And then on that side is all getting developed or higher density. From that house there and all these other houses are all like 5 acres. This 9 acre parcel right in the center of these larger lots is the one that they're trying to develop. It makes sense to go on the other side of that creek. That makes sense for the neighborhood. Because we need some higher density housing for people. I get that. But to stick 27 homes between two large houses on that side of the road seems like spot zoning and doesn't really flow with the neighborhood. This side of the street, they're going higher density. We understand that as homeowners out there. And if you look at that lot that he was saying is agriculture, that guy, I think he did sell. If he hasn't sold yet, he might. But he's not arguing the houses that are already around him. If you drive out there and look at the neighborhood, to put 27 houses in there makes 0 sense for the neighborhood. And I think when they did the high impact zone and stuff, they just take a circle and go around. They don't take, that's why planning and zoning, and you guys are in charge of doing the little fine tuning for this area. And that's why we look at that. We were all, the whole entire neighborhood, totally in favor of the 3 acre lots. When those people bought their houses, if they went into the county or the city and looked and said, I'm gonna build my house here, and look next door, there was one other building permit. There was no way of knowing that you guys were somebody else was gonna come in and try and change that. So when people say, well, you're the one who bought out there, well, you do, you go look, just like a developer does. But they also, as a developer, are supposed to go out and look at the neighborhoods and look at where they're looking and the impact they're supposed to be putting on that area. And that does not fit at all. If it's across the street, if it's across the creek, because then you've got a natural buffer. But to stick it between all those houses just seems very unfair to those homeowners and the area.
Any questions? I guess I have one.
Okay,
Did I hear you say 27?
I think that's what they're talking.
Okay, there is no preliminary plat.
Yeah, there is a preliminary plat. You guys have preliminary plat?
We can't submit a
Right,
pre-plat.
there is no plat, yeah, that's probably the potential though.
Yeah, that's what,
Yours.
yeah, 27. I think it
I
is
just wanted to
25, 27, whatever.
Understood where you came from. that.
Yeah,
Okay.
okay.
Anything else?
And part of the reason they're asking for that is because of the road cost. So,
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to testify?
I'm Robert Dunkley, 5543 North, 4050 East, and I have my wife that just testified. That when they were talking about that there is high density housing or housing right up to farmland, well, out there, that is not the case, because there is Big Sand Creek right there, which is a huge buffer on there that separates all of that. So they want to turn around and do big lots or that people that the existing people that are there now have, and then put all these houses and then one more house, and then all the across Big Sand Creek to the west is where the high density housing is. And originally they were talking about the 3/10 of an acre that we sold to, my wife and I sold to Hicks, with the stipulation that would give him 9 acres to where he could do 3-acre parcels there. Everybody up and down the road was good with that. Everybody was happy with it. Hicks, I guess, was even good with it until the county comes back and says you have to pay for 500 and some odd feet of a road for 3 houses. And I understand it's not feasible to do that. But the thing of it is that is a separate piece of property right there. And he actually only has 8.7 acres, because it's stipulated in our contract with him that we give his money back to him and we take the 3/10 of an acre back. And that's the agreement that we had with Mike Hicks. So that was gonna change what he's going to be able to do there, because you're not gonna have a total of full 9 acres. So I think it's not right it's been turned down twice through planning and zoning. And nothing's changed on it whatsoever. All the high density is west of Big Sand Creek. The school that's going in directly across the street there, is facing south. The back of the school will be against that road, so there's not gonna be any houses right there against the road until you get on down a ways on the east side of the school. And then, Rockwell, I'm sure is gonna keep moving on over to there with his houses. But nothing on the north side of 45th or 49th is small lots like that. Everything ranges from our farm at over 100 acres to 2.5 acres is the smallest ones, and go on up to like 10 to 13 acres. So I just think that if any of you had a house on either side of where he wanted to put that, you would say, absolutely not. We're not gonna have that. And how's the kids going to get across that street to the school? They said the school is already full with the houses that Rockwell's already putting in. They said the school is completely full. So how's the kids gonna get across 49 to get to that school? Are they gonna bring and bus kids clear on around? Or are they gonna put a crosswalk with a blinking light on there? What are they gonna do that? How are they gonna do it? And is the county gonna plow the snow through there? I mean, there's a lot of ifs and can the road handle it? Can the sewer, the water, all that handle it? I don't think so. I think we went to the city council meeting for Iona. And this is their concern is, that we're getting the cart before the horse. That all this building, everybody, Rockwell and all these guys want to take up all this farmland and build, but the infrastructure is not there for it. And I think that it needs to be backed off. I think the county commissioner should do some kind of a variance with him on that. If he puts 3-acre plots in there and houses on it, that's gonna be virtually zero impact on that road. And for him to have to pay $1 million or whatever to put that road in for 3 houses, I know is not feasible to do that. I was a developer with Fairway Estates for over 20 years. And everybody says, oh, they're rich developers. But I can tell you right now, I could have left my money in a 5% CD and come out better than I did in 20 years of developing with my partners out there. So anyway, that's kind of where I feel on it. Any questions?
Thank you. Good questions.
Were any of the neighbors out there when you put Fairway Estates in objecting to all that high density housing out in the middle of farming?
Well, there isn't any really high.
When you did.
Yeah,
What?
when we did it. No, because they were the ones, the farmers.
No, no. No, they didn't, because there were fairly good sized lots and nice homes out there. No. We never, ever had that issue.
What are the size of the lots in Fairway?
They vary on the side, but most of them are, I would say, probably 1/4 of an acre, yeah. Some of them are bigger down around the golf course and.
And then have you exercised the option on the 3/10 of an acre to get your money back?
No, because we've been waiting to see how everything happens,
I'll ask I'm sure, Mr. Hicks will be testifying. Well, I'll just ask, is that true? That's in your contract?
Yeah, and we're good either way.
Okay.
Land can either stay and be a part of it, if the rezone is approved, or it can be purchased back, we're actually good either way.
Okay, that's my questions.
Any other questions?
I've got some for us.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else who wishes to testify?
Steve Ellsworth, Ellsworth and Associates, 253 First Street again. One thing I do, two things.
Maybe can we finish
Oh, sorry, yeah.
let's finish the public testimony and then we'll get to you to wrap up.
All right, my name is Ruby Furman. I live right there at the corner. We see that blue between the AG, right there. That's my house. We just bought that house 2 years ago. And we bought it for reasons that we're taking care of our father-in-law and mother-in-law. And that was a perfect place because we could go to hospitals again, in and out of that, without knowing that that was gonna go there. 26 houses is the price in our home is probably gonna go way lower than what we pay for. Is over $800,000 home that we pay for, total home. And if we put 27 houses there, I can guarantee you that those houses are not gonna be affordable either for people that can afford 300. It's not gonna be a $300,000. It's probably gonna be more than 300,000, but it's still people are not gonna afford that. So the only benefit for that is just for the people that are making that happen there for only that company. It's not really looking out for the rest. It's just what is good for me only, not for the rest of, I can guarantee you, I'm a realtor too, and he's not gonna put a house there that people can come in and pay $250,000. You know what I mean? So we have an $800,000 home right there in that corner. He put 23 houses there. And then in the other side, you have $800,000 homes. In the back, you have 100 acres that they own. So I don't know. Is he looking out for everybody or he's looking out for just him? That's my.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Okay, thank you. Does anybody else wish to testify for the public portion? Yes, Mr. Hicks.
Mike Hicks, 3525 Merton Drive in Idaho Falls. Boy, this has been a long drawn out thing. We mentioned in the last hearing that, we actually came with the plat on this, a couple years ago. And at that time, P and Z supported the plat and the commissioner said, not at this time. And one of the reasons for that is that all of the ground on the other side of the canal was in process of something happening to it. And it was undefined what was going to happen on that particular property. And so that was part of the basis for that, is we were in that mixed use zone. It's interesting to me that, the comp plan has been sitting in this area for quite some time. And to our knowledge, and Austin went back and looked, there's never been any protest about the zoning. Even when Iona changed the zoning and changed the density, to my knowledge, none of the folks that live in that area have been out to protest that. And the Fearmans who purchased there, all the zoning and everything was there for public record for them to check at the time. And of course, in their backyard, if you look just outside their back window, that's their manufacturing. There's some light manufacturing going on in that property back behind them. So we do have a lot of mixed use out in that area. Our point about development and the comprehensive plan is that that's the roadmap that the county, in conjunction with cities, has laid out. And it's in their ideal fashion. This is how an area should develop and would ideally develop. And it's also a message or an advertisement out to those who might be further development property from its current use to another use. And this is where you should look. And that's what that comp plan is about. So we would have happily done the 3 acre lots. And when we first came in, it was mixed use. We thought, well, we'll see how this will work with mixed use. We came with a plat that didn't fly. So we worked with the Dunkleys to try to acquire property to get to that 3 acre limit. And this is an example of how changes happen. So from the time we started all that to the time we came back and said, okay, now we've got our 3 acres, things have changed. More growth had happened. The plating had occurred to the north, the plating had occurred over here off of Wheelhouse Drive and in that area. And as we looked at this, what we thought we would like to do there, the zone that we felt would have the least amount of impact that could also create some potential for moving that property forward was the 1.5 zone. We didn't want to go to a multifamily zone that was too high density, and we really did not feel like that would fit. Now, the other part of comprehensive planning to us is that it's not just a look at today, it's a look at the future. And so if we were expanding this map, if we had the parcel viewer up and we were looking at everything going on out in this area, we'll find that all kinds of properties like this are now surrounded by development. Because you either say we're not going to develop, or we have to make adjustments as growth comes in, and we do that. And there's case after case, and even recent ones further to the east, just a little bit to the east of us, there are 2 subdivisions on 49th North, 3 subdivisions on 49th North that have recently been approved. And in 2 of those cases, they are surrounding larger residential properties like these. I lived on Montalani Lane, just south of 49th South. And we woke up one day, we were living on 2.5 acres. All of our homes are 2.5 acres. It's a 13 lot plat sitting off of 49th South. And in came Gary Voigt, big old plat back in behind us, and we could either stay or go. And we said, well, that's not what we want. And so we moved because we knew it was in the impact zone. Growth was going to happen. We moved further south. I told this story in the last time we moved further south, and son of a gun, the property immediately to our north adjoining our property sold to another developer. Our choice was to stay or to go, either way, but the development was there. It was coming into the city. It was adjacent to the city, so we knew what was going to happen. So we could have stayed or we could have left. Well, we sold and we moved again. It's hard. Growth is hard, and the changes that it brings are hard. When we look down the road, as long as the Dunkleys are alive, I am sure nothing's going to happen with that land that they own that adjoins this property. But if it's sold today as ag ground, it's worth 12 to 15,000 an acre. If they find themselves in a position that they need to sell, or their heirs find themselves in a position that they are going to sell because nobody's going to take over the property, the value is at least 3 times what the ag value is as development property. And as we expand out and we've taken time to look at all the parcels, the larger parcels surrounding this, it's all going to go residential. It'll all be residential because that's the intent of the county for that area. And even directly to the east of the Dunkleys property, the largest developer in our area has acquired the property directly to their east. It's going to be right in front of them very soon as well. This is hard. It's hard to be the one doing this. When we look at the zoning, moving north to south, this makes great sense. East to west, I guess we can call a question to it, but I don't know how this develops because clearly, as we'd had a plat before, the county planning and zoning was requiring us to put in a street that would link to that property. So clearly there is intent that this will one day develop residential, and we need to be planning for it. So you've got to stub in a road to provide for that in the future. So I think that's the biggest thing, when we talk about traffic and all those things and developing the street, I've actually never development in Fairway Estates, as small world as it is. Long before we were doing this, we actually acquired, we were one of the group that purchased the rest of Fairway Estates. And I can actually tell you that every time we have something, we have neighbors showing up today. They're unhappy about the traffic on Pavero. They're unhappy about what this will impact and when is the bridge going in. The public is always, always, always concerned about traffic. As far as the school goes, the road and bridge has been cleared. There won't be a walkway. There will not be one. The school will be required to provide courtesy busing into that area to get folks across the street. I think last thing we'd say when we develop, one of the great things is that you end up with sidewalks. You end up with a place for people to walk and to walk safely that doesn't exist today that would be beneficial. So I think that's probably all that I can really say today. Ed, questions?
Thank you. Questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anybody else that would like to testify? Okay, we'll go ahead and finish up then. So we're going to close the public portion of the hearing. Okay, and we'll get back to him following.
Just one more thing I did want to add. An approval for a rezone today does not mean that 25, 27 houses are gonna fall from the sky tomorrow. That we're still preliminary plat process that needs to happen. We're still probably a year to two out before we have a finalized, product of a house to be built on this project. So the concerns about the traffic safety, if we were to, the roadway in front of us would need to be constructed as part of our plat before we could even turn around to sell anything. That would have to be done prior to listing any houses. So at that point, the thought that it's an unsafe area because the road isn't developed, the road would be developed prior to any houses becoming for sale. So again, just by approving the rezone today does not mean that we're gonna have houses dropping from the sky tomorrow. It's still a year to 2 years out. I just wanted to make that clear that it's not gonna be a 2-month turnaround.
All right, thank you. There may be some questions later, but we reserve the option to come back to you. I think we do have some questions for our administrator.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Had a few questions, trying to reconcile the timelines through all these records. Give me a history of the area of impact change, when those were held and at what levels and how many of them were there. The public had a chance for input.
I couldn't tell you exact dates, but last year when we changed the area of impact agreement with the city of Iona, there was 4 different public hearings held on that, or public meetings held on that. There was 2 held at the county level, one of the planning and zoning commission and one of the county commissioners. And there was also 2 held in the city of Iona, one of their planning commission, one of the county commissioners. On the county level, I know that nobody attended any of those public hearings to give input on the new area of impact map or the area of impact changes from this general vicinity that we're discussing today. I don't know, as far as the city of Iona, I don't have their records to know if there was people in attendance from this area there, but.
And at planning and zoning level, what was the time lag between when they approved the area of impact agreement and this recommendation they made roughly?
Probably 6 months, close to 6 months.
Okay, and they recommended against something they voted for 6 months earlier.
Recommended against, yes, an area essentially that they looked at and said, we feel like with working in the city of Iona, this is an appropriate area for high density housing. That's the plan that they adopted with the city of Iona, but they recommended against the approval of this application.
Yeah, I know lot sizes will be determined on planning, but what's the average lot size? If you have 27 homes in.
They can be 6,000 square feet, but they're about 6,000 to 8,000 square feet, I believe.
How much of an acre is that?
That's about it.
It was about
7.
They're like, we were.
6, yeah.
About 0.18 to 2. Some of them were larger.
So 0.5 or, yeah, 2.2 of an acre, so 5 lots an acre.
To your question, Commissioner, the original hearing where P and Z recommended approval to the commissioners, that actually occurred in late 2022.
It was in 2022, yes.
It was like fall of 2022 and it was like a 4-2 vote at that time in favor of that. And of course, again, that was when I believe the commission was looking at what was going on around to the north and trying to gauge, okay, what's really happened in this area? We need to resolve this. So that was that. So when we came back again with essentially the same plat, That's when they said no.
And in the comprehensive plan and the impact area, when you deal with Iona, were there any restrictions based on natural buffers? Like canals, ditches?
No, we didn't really talk about that a lot. The talk was just that we felt like the area along the highway was a good commercial area, and then backing up to that commercial was a good way to down zone with that higher density residential working its way into the city.
Have answered the other questions as we've gone along.
You have questions?
Point Rhonda, kind of clarification. P and Z did their hearing with the city of Iona area of impact on June 28th, 2023. It's on our agenda of that tonight. So then it would have come to you guys
In August.
after that, if that helps.
That helps, thanks.
You're welcome.
One question I had is, I'm still trying in my mind, so what's the difference between R1 and R1.5?
R1 strictly allows for single family homes only. R1.5 allows for single family twin homes, which means essentially they're a shared lot, but you can split the dwelling, or they're on two separate lots, but your shared lot line. So you have a twin home that the lot line runs in the middle of the twin home, and you've got two houses on either side. And the frontages in R1.5 that are required are a little less than the R1 zone. And I believe, from my understanding in conversations with the developer, is the intent has always been single family homes, but they are requesting R1.5 because it had a little narrower frontage than the R1 zone, so it allowed them more flexibility in their design with the development.
The other question I had is just refresh me a little bit on the implications of this entering into the area of impact of the city of Iona.
So
Help me out with the,
way that the area of impact agreement is written is any new development that's located within the city of Iona area of impact that's been agreed upon between the city and the county. They have to record a written statement and put language on the plat that says that this project or this property will be annexed into the city of Iona once they're contiguous to the city. The new state annexation law that they just passed also addresses that and saying that written consent, either by a recorded deed or on the plat that is recorded, is enough for any future property owner when the city gets there to be able to go and annex the property. So essentially, this map was an agreement with the city that anything that's approved within this area in the county will be built to city standards and prepared for annexation into the city of Iona.
Follow up on that.
Yeah.
And, this proposal meets that city standard.
Yes, I mean, there's some things we have to verify at plating stage as far as road widths and all of that, making sure it meets all the city requirements, but this is an allowed zone within the area of impact for this area.
questions, any other questions?
Just one to kind of clarify in mind. So there's no requirement in this when it comes to the next step, for the buffer zones between the high density housing and single lots, like.
There
This is.
There is buffers that are required between uses that aren't compatible with each other, so it may be that on the west side of the property or the east side where it borders the ag, that there's a landscape buffer or something that screens from the other uses. That's something that's pretty typical in these type of zonings between higher density and ag.
My question was more relative between high density and low density. Is there a medium density that goes between those two step downs? Is this
Yeah, and sometimes you'll buffer those, sometimes there's kind of a natural serving buffer as you work your way down across through the neighborhood. Just depending, but that's something that could be recommended as part of a decision, is a required buffering.
Any other questions? Mr. Ellsworth, do you have anything else that you wanted to add before we close it? Okay, with that said, we appreciate all the testimony today. And, we will take this under advisement, meaning we are going to review all the information we have. There will be no further dialogue between the commissioners. We will independently make our own decision and express that to our planning and zoning, who will then write a findings of facts that will be voted on at a future date, 2 to 3 weeks.
Yeah.
Probably. They always happen during our Wednesday road and bridge meeting, which is at 10 a.m. So if you just watch our weekly calendar, you'll know when that vote's going to take place. It'll be a discussion at that time. It will not have any public input. So with that, anything else, we'll call it here and close. Thank you, everybody.